I'm great. I'm singing that. I will be singing that all day now. I'll be humming that tune. All salt and pepper. We are live. It's 1:43. Today I want to talk about push rods. And there's actually several things that you can look for, several problematic areas when you're dealing with push rods. So we want to talk about those. One of those, a lot of people don't even realize that it happened. So we talk about push rods, and obviously the first thing that people think about, I guess, at least one of the first two, one of them is the proper length and then the proper material. So if we look back at excuse me, back at small block Fords and small block Chevys and those kinds of things, we know that when we ran guide plates with stuff, you have to have a hardened push rod, because a push rod rubs against the guide plate, and anytime there's contact like that, the materials have to be strong enough to withstand that. Because otherwise, if you have one super hard material and one lesser hard material, the lesser hard material is going to take the brunt of this, and it's going to wear out, and you're going to get shavings in, and eventually it's going to wear through the push rod. The push rod's going to break. So we can't have that. So what we need to do, obviously, is have the material strength in the push rod. On an LS application, which is one that we're kind of talking about, you don't have guide plates. And so because of the way that the rocker aligns itself in the stand, it has a cup, and then the trunnion in the rocker locates itself, because the cup basically is not allowing the rocker to rotate at all. Won't allow it movement side to side. So that performs the same way as a pushrod guide plate does back in the old days, or even some of at least the early ones. I don't know if they're still doing that. Some of the roller rockers that they offered for LS's stuff, especially early on, way back in the day, they had guide plates, and that because they're going back to what they know. A lot of this comp stuff that we tested was like that. I don't know if they still are like that, but at any rate, the rocker stands have these cups in them, and they stop the rocker from rotating. So you don't have to worry about the push rod rubbing on the guide plate. But you do need enough material strength. You need the right material, and also a lot of times they will adjust this with thickness to get and the right diameter push rod. You could go from, in the case of a LS, it's a 5/16 push rod to a 3/8, and we've seen guys, I guess they could go even bigger than that, although I don't know what kind of application. Maybe for something that's 10,000 RPM, you would need that. Even in my 8,000 RPM stuff that we did, I use 5/16 push rods. We used 105 wall stuff, I think, on that. But I've done tests on what you would call your normal kind of operations for stuff that's like 7,500 or something, which would be the vast majority of LS applications. We tried 80 and 105 wall stuff, and we saw no change. Now, we saw no change in power on the power curve. It might be interesting also to test those push rod lengths on some combination on like a Spintron, where we tested it with, fairly aggressive spring rates, because that's where you start looking at that. You want to look at the spring rate, which is basically going to be the resistance of the push rod, and is it going to cause this thing to bend, and also RPM, because frequency is going to come into play here too. And so the tuning frequency of the push rod is going to be affected by its diameter and by its wall and even wall design. So there's a lot of cool things that go into that. But for this conversation, what you need to have is the thing that we're talking about is push rod needs to be strong enough. So you do that by the material that you use. Is it a hardened push rod? And then is it what wall thickness it is, and then also what diameter it is. For the vast majority of performance kind of LS things, your typical 80 wall hardened push rod from Trend or any of these push rod companies, that will usually suffice. In fact, for a lot of this stuff, even for like the cams that I offer, the low buck truck camshaft or the Truck Plus camshaft in a reasonable RPM range with reasonable spring rates, the factory push rod, if it's the right length, is a viable option. So that brings us to the next thing. The next thing we need to look at is the right push rod length. And the push rod length, I have videos up talking about how you measure push rod length and then where you want it to be, basically. Because unlike other accommodations, small block Ford, small block Chevy, big blocks, where you have an adjustable rocker, you've got a little bit of leeway in what push rod length you can use. You also have leeway in a bolt down rocker like we have with the LS combination, but we do that in a different way. The length of the push rod is going to help determine how much preload you have on the lifter. So what happens is we get to a point that's called zero lash, and that's with the camshaft on the heel of the cam, so that the opening ramp where we open the valve is nowhere near opening the valve, and that way we can adjust we can tighten the rocker down without preloading the spring, and also give a good idea of what push rod length we need. So with the lobe in that position, we tighten it down until we get zero lash. Now, zero lash is when the rocker tip is in contact with the valve tip, and then the rocker cup is in contact with the push rod, and the bottom of the push rod is in contact with the lifter. So when all of that stuff comes together and they're all touching and there's no lash in anything, then you go ahead and tighten the rocker arm. So when we tighten the rocker arm, what you're doing is you're pushing down the lifter. Hopefully you're not pushing down the spring, but the same thing happens. So what you want to do is you tighten that down until the rocker, basically the trunnion, seats in the cup, in the rocker stand. And the number of turns that it takes to do that dictate how much lifter preload. Because eventually, even if you're pushing the spring down a little bit, what will happen is the lifter will pump up, and then everything will be working right. Or if you're depressing the lifter. So what you do is you measure the number of turns that you do past that zero lash point. And if you have, like, let's say a half turn, we've even done it with as little as a quarter turn, but when you don't have any turns, you get to the point where the push rod's too short. And you don't want that to happen, because then you have lash in there, like we put in with a solid roller cam. You have lash in there, you're going to have noise. Also, it's going to beat stuff up, because this system is not designed to have lash in it. So you go from about a half a turn there, that way we have preload in the lifter, up to as much as like a turn and a half. All within that range, that push rod will work. Is it ideal? You can decide that, because you can adjust the power curve a little bit. But everywhere in that range, the push rod will work, and the lifter will work, and the rocker will work, and the motor will run, and it will all be fine. If you go beyond that, more than a turn and a half, you get into an area where you'll basically just hang the valve open. It won't close enough. You won't build any compression. You can also, if it's too bad, you might come into a situation where the piston would hit the valve, but probably not. What is more likely is that the motor's not going to run if you have that, because the valve is open. You're not making a compression. You have to have, air and fuel and spark and compression. Otherwise, the thing's not going to work. And so if you're letting all that come out, it's just not going to work. So you'll know that right away. So get the push rod length right. So the length is another critical thing. You got the material, you got the length. The other thing that I want to talk about, and this is particularly the case on real high mileage motors, like my truck motor, like most of the motors that I get from the wrecking yard, when you take them apart, one of the things you'll see, even though we say, yeah, I just get a wrecking yard motor, put boost on it, and put a low buck truck camshaft in it, put valve springs in it, ring gap and injectors and a tune and stuff, and you're on your way. One of the things I always check, in fact, this is actually a good thing to check while you're at the wrecking yard, because you can rebuild your motor at the wrecking yard. What you do is, if you want to and take the time, take all the rockers off. Take the coil packs off, take the valve covers off, take all the rockers off and inspect them. You can also inspect the push rods. What happens is, when you take the rocker off, if this is a high mileage motor and or one that hasn't had regular oil changes, the person hasn't taken care of, they just don't give a shit about it. What happens is you'll see, if you take the rockers off, you'll see two things. One, you'll see the rocker cup where the push rod goes into. It will be all shiny. So you spray it off with brake cleaner or whatever, you'll see it. It's all shiny because it's worn out. The ones that are not worn out will not be shiny. So what's happening is you don't have enough oil between the tip of the rocker, between the cup of the rocker and the tip of the push rod. And so it's kind of grinding in there with no lubrication. Not good. The thing that happens when that happens is, not only does it wear the cup in the rocker, but it also wears the push rod tip. And this will be evident, especially if it's really bad. One thing is this will be shiny and it'll be like it's machined, because it is, because it's metal on metal. The other thing that will happen is the push rod tip will be a weird shape now. It won't be round, because once you wear it enough, you make it into a football shape. So it now has kind of tips on it. And depending on how much wear it is, this could be more or less pronounced. It could just start to be happening, so it's a little out of round to where it's like looks like a football. When you have that push rod doesn't want to rotate, and it certainly doesn't want to rotate normally like it would. What that does is makes the wear more pronounced. So you're going to wear out the push rod more and wear out the rocker cup more. Obviously, that's bad. You're getting material in there. You're wearing out the push rod. You can eventually break the tip of the push rod. You can eventually, I don't think I've ever seen anybody wear through a rocker, but it would be possible. But you don't want all that material in your motor, because then that can take bearings out and stuff. And the push rod could be bad. So when you get a high mileage motor, like I said, if you want to take all the rockers off and check them, check the push rods. Oh, these 3 are bad. Take those out, throw them away, go to another motor, grab 3 that are good, put those in there, look at the rockers. Oh, these 3, the same rockers are worn out too. Throw those away, go get 3 more, put them on. Boom, you just rebuilt your motor. And the other thing that won't happen, and this is also something, like I said, that's common on these high mileage motors, is that, oh, this motor has a lifter tick. Well, one of the things I would check, in addition to, hey, maybe your lifters need to be cleaned, or maybe they need to be replaced because they have 200,000 or 300,000 miles on them, is let's take a look at those. Take a look at those push rod tips. If your push rod tips are football shaped and your rocker is worn out, it's going to make noise and it's not going to sound good. And so maybe your lifter tick is actually push rod tick. And so that's my lesson for today. So check your push rods. Like I said, if they're worn out, they're the wrong material, the wrong length, all of that stuff kind of comes into play. On my website now, we're putting push rods up so that you can replace them. The most common size is a 7.4 for the LS, and that's the one we'll start with. We may take other ones, because when you adjust things, like if you put a different head on, certainly a lot of times you have to change the push rod length. If you have a different base circle cam, you have to change that. If you mill the head, you have to change that. There are some instances where you will need a different push rod length. And so you have to measure that. And like I said, the procedure that I just talked about measuring it, putting it on the heel of the cam and measuring the number of turns. And then we can go into, you could go into detail about, hey, what happens if I use a short travel lifter? Well, it's a lot more precise than the thing that I just talked about. So let's see what you guys got going on. Last night, we all got to talk about the fight night, which was pretty fun. So we got some good stuff going on last night. Springfield's in the house. Special Agent Knowledge. Twister Garage. Nitrous makes the lifter tick go away. It does. And Boost makes Boost makes the ring seal better. Nitrous makes the ring seals better. All of that's good. Robert, what's going on? Solid lifters fix the problem too. I don't ever agree with putting solid lifters in an LS. Guys do it for like extreme drag racing things, but you can make so much power with the LS application. Solid lifter stuff I associate that with building like high RPM, more kind of racy motors. Push rods equal a good, reliable, good sounding motor. I agree. That's like we just talked about. It can definitely make noise if it's wrong. Have you ever seen anyone do 243 heads on a 351 block? Want to know what they went through to make it work? It's a lot of work, but the bore centers are close enough that you can make the head work. The bolt holes are in different spots, and so it's not an easy thing. Can you please do a Ford 281 462 valve NA build? So you should go up on the channel and look at all the 462 valve NA stuff that's already up there. I have lots of videos up on 462 valve stuff. Looking at building one of the Tricklow top end kit and Eagle bottom end kit, going from 281 to a 4.6 to a 4.7. Okay. We've done some 5-liter stroker 4.62 valve stuff, and it worked out pretty well. What's considered a reasonable spring rate? Most of the hydraulic roller spring rate stuff is pretty reasonable. You can also overspring something. Like I get asked all the time on the low buck truck cams that I sell, hey, can I put a 660 lift spring in there? You can, but you shouldn't, because excessive spring rate also is hard on stuff. And so you don't need that. And also, if you're going with excessive spring rate and a cam that needs that, you shouldn't be thinking that that's as reliable as a stock setup is, because it's not. You're putting more pressure on everything, and it's going to be harder on stuff, and it's not going to last as long as factory stuff does. But that's for 230 plus cams and 660 lifts springs and stuff that has maybe 400 or 400 plus pounds of open pressure. I read an article a while back that stuck with me. Guy did spintron testing and a lot of research in testing, ending up with 5/16 to 3/8 double taper 80 wall push rods in an LS actually gained power due to. Sorry, if you're going to tell me that he gained power due to deflection, I didn't see that in my testing, at least not the kind of combination that we had together. So what that tells me is that there was little or no deflection in the 80 wall push rods that we had that were hurting, that the push rod itself wasn't, because they'll in dynamic testing, there will be some deflection in the valve train. There always is, compared to static. That will always happen. But the push rod itself in our instance wasn't something that was causing that, and whatever would be there, and didn't reduce the power output. So we see a lot of that. If the push rod deflection is causing that and you fix that, that is possible. So if I decide to run your low buck truck camshaft and go to check push rod length, something between half to turn half worth of lifter preload on the rocker bolt, yeah, that's easy enough. That's all that you need. Richard, which video do you test cams? And you tested a 206 cam that did well, even in a stroker. On the 175 horsepower cam upgrade is, I think, the name of that video, where we ran a 408, and we ran it with a stock cam, that 206 cam, a 224 cam, maybe like a 230 and a 240 cam. Seen push rods go through the rocker on a 318. I've seen it on small block Chevys. I think Derek had it happen. Happy football day. Is there football on today? Is there unstraight 90 weight and boost and everything works fine? So is increasing rocker ratio alone worth the cost these days? The NSR Truck Norris cam shows that a little extra lift isn't worth much. Yeah, the in that cam test, it was about 6 or 7 horsepower, I think. I run BTR push rods on my 383 small block. Okay. Yeah, small block and an LS both will have 5/16 push rods. So as long as you get the length right. I think a 7.4. I think it's factory hydraulic roller small block is a 7200, I think. I had a broken head bolt and was drilling it out. I'd measured it and everything, but for some reason the bolt was so soft, the bit blew through it and went into my water jacket on 823 heads. That's not good. I can put the store website down here. RichardHolderPerformance.com. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Okay, there it is. Time for TIG welding to repair the aluminum. Yeah, can you get the TIG in there? Would you have to TIG the hole, the complete hole up, and then re-drill and then re-tap it to make that work? And you're gonna want to do that on a mill too, where you can get the angle just right. I don't really see how they could get into it. I don't understand how drilling out that could get into the. I had a broken head bolt. But if you broke the head bolt, you broke the head bolt off on an LS, you can still just take the head out. So I don't understand how the head got hurt. Because if the head bolt is stuck, it's not stuck in the head, it's stuck in the block. And if the head bolt is stuck, you could just snap the bolt pretty easily. Of a 6-liter LS, where should I start with it? What is it? Jay, what are you trying to do to it? Just tell me how much power you make and you want to make, and I can tell you how to do it. A loud exhaust helps with lifter tick, or a loud stereo. Oh, it's a header bolt and not a head bolt. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, those are a pain. Usually we weld something to those and then get them out. But that would be a lot easier. You could definitely weld that up and fix it and re-drill it. Worst thing that can happen is pull the threads out of the block. I've done that on a Honda application. 351 Windsor, 206, 480, 110 S-gas head, shooting for torque. Do you run a 1.7 rocker intake or exhaust or all? What you're going to see with a rocker change, whether you do it on the intake or the exhaust, is you're going to see more power at the top. You're going to see less of a power gain down low. Jay, if you just take a 6-liter and put one of my cams and springs, and you're going to need injectors because it's going to make a lot of extra power, and tune it, I think you'll be really happy with it. If you want to make lots more power, I have lots of videos up on 6-liter builds where you can make lots of power. But for a daily driver thing that you're going out and stomping on, that low buck truck camshaft works really good. WFO, if it's in the rear exhaust bolt, they sell an inexpensive bracket that bolts to the back of the head and holds the manifold in place. What would be an appropriate stall converter for a suburban daily driven 2-wheel drive 5.3 with a truck Norris cam? You can use the stock with my low buck truck camshaft or that truck Norris cam. You can use a stock converter on a 5.3. If you want to put a converter in it, something like a 2500 would be fine. Let's see. A torch and candle wax also works well to remove stuck belts. I don't think I've ever tried the candle wax. I remember hearing about that stuff though. I welded a nut to get my broken header bolts out. I think his issue is the hole in the water jacket, though, not the bolt anymore. Yeah, no, I don't think. Yeah, if he has a hole and it goes all the way into water, you're gonna have to weld that up. I have actually run on Ford heads where I just didn't care, just drilled through into water, and we just put bolts in it and held the header on with the bolts and hope that the bolt held all the water in. And we ran that in a race car like that, and it worked-ish, kind of. Best cam setup for a daily driven LY6 with a 4L80 and a converter. Again, I don't know what the best is because that's going to be a subjective definition. I don't know what you're trying to achieve. If you tell me where you want to make power, or if it's just a daily driver and you want to just drive around but have a little bit more power, I would put one of my low buck truck camshafts in it with springs. And we have cam and springs now up on the website, are available as a set, and you can buy them together. Do you have fuel injectors? No, Dustin, we were working on that today. I'm just trying to find, and that will be our poll for today, I think. First thing I have to do is get my caps up there. Okay, should I put an affordable set of injectors for an NA truck application up on the website? So what I mean by that is there isn't so far, as far as I can see, any sort of drop in like 80 or 90 pound truck length affordable injectors to put up on the channel yet, or put up on the website. I haven't seen that, but there are lots of ones that you could put up that for guys just doing NA stuff that would be, 40 or 50 pounds. There's a lot in that range. So you could get the GM flex fuel injectors and those kinds of things. But right now I haven't seen anything that's like I said, what I want it to be is like an 80 or 90 pound drop-in injector. If it had the truck plug, that'd be ideal. But that's an easy thing with adapters that are available. We're still looking for that, but I want to put an injector up that a guy can use for when they're doing these cam upgrades. So should we put that up on the channel or up on the website? Let me know. That way you could go there, get the cam, get the springs, get the injectors, and then you're all set. Delphi LS7 lifters or OEM? Yes. The ones that we're offering are stuff that Brian Tooley Racing is offering. If I had to weld a nut on half of my header studs, it frees them up usually by the superheating them. Yeah, that's what we did. I have videos up where we repaired that 4.8, which we put so much time and effort into it. I would have been way money and time ahead just throwing the thing away and then going to the wrecking yard, just getting a good one. Will Holder Performance be making low buck Fox body cams? We're talking about that. That would be a ways off though. It's kind of cool how the wax sucks into the bolt holes. Yeah, how it leaches in there. Chevy 350 small block was like that, where the bolt went into the water jacket. Yeah, this was a small block Ford. These were trick flow heads. Replacing doors on a duplex, a friend. Nice. All the replacement doors open the opposite direction. Yeah. It's always that way, right? Can the LS head benefit from what Dulcich did on the DIY head porting episode of Engine Masters to gain so much power? I don't know if the LS port is blocked as badly as the Mopar stuff. No, the LS port is way better than the Mopar stuff. In fact, if he did a Mopar small block, he probably was able to port it up to what a stock LS head already flows. But I don't remember if that video that he did is small block or big block. And Dulcich is pretty good at porting, particularly Mopar stuff. Can I install 5.3 in a Chevy Silverado 2500? Yes. Well, I need to get a different transmission. I could use the same one from the 6-liter. It bolts right up to that 2500, whatever transmission you have in there. Whether it's a 4L60E or a 4L80E, the 5.3 is the exact same as a 6-liter in terms of bolting that up. Head bolts go into the water, but the exhaust manifold bolts shouldn't. Do titanium exhaust bolts hold up over time better than stainless steel, or is that just snake oil? I wouldn't ever do titanium ones. I would think that would be too brittle. I don't think I do stainless ones either, because you actually want some growth in that, because there has to be, because of they get so hot because of the expansion. That's why the bolts end up being stuck in there. I mean, they're in a terrible environment too, and they're dissimilar metals. Daily driven LY6 4L80. I'm not going to hot rod it, but do want to run Tornado blower. I don't know what a Tornado is, but like a Torque Storm one. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, my low butt truck camshaft, which they're only $199. If you compare that to other stuff that's out there, it's not even close in terms of the cost, but it will work well with that blower, as most cams do. An L96 2500 comes with 44-pound injectors. That's good. How about Snake Eater Performance? I have one set of those. They're 1500s, and I've used them, and they've worked very well. Go Sports Team Ball. I don't even know who's on there or playing. With your Ford experience, are you considering doing an friendly cam combo? I don't know what you mean by that. I mean, I have lots of combos up there, and I already ran in my Mustang. I already ran a 302 with the 274 cam with aluminum trick flow heads on it, and a Cobra or a GT40 or any kind of intake that you want, and a Vortec on it, and we ran it with an E4. So all of that works as long as you can. You have to be able to tune it though. The 4.8 looked like it came from the bottom of the lake. It was bad. And I'd never seen anything like that, especially I've never seen anybody try to silicone a rocker bolt back in. Neutral drop, put a 5.3 in there, 2500 when they blew up the 6-liter. Yeah, it just, those should interchange. The rust jacking of the stock manifold will snap the head bolts off. Do you know how much power a stock NV2500 is good for? I don't know how much you could, and a lot of stuff for transmission things, a lot of it is not power related. It's abuse related. Like I ran my supercharged 5-liter deal on a stock T5 for, I don't know, 6 years. And so, but I never abused it. Would I gain extra power if I installed larger injectors on my LS1 after CNC cylinder heads and a 226 camshaft? My injectors are 100% duty cycle at 6,000, but it does not get lean. So as long as you have the right air fuel, putting bigger injectors in isn't going to add any power. If you don't have the right air fuel, if you're getting lean, then you can add power. If you're at 100% duty cycle, I would put bigger injectors in it. Your aluminum 5.3 looked pretty bad to me, but it turned out to be a great little mill. Yeah, it was ugly a little on the outside, mostly from probably leaking oil or something. And even on the inside, it didn't look that great. Like, I'd like to clean that thing out and hone it. It just runs so good, though. I hesitate to take it apart. Because then I can't brag to people that it has, because I made a comment in, I think it was probably on Facebook. Somebody was asking how, and this surprises me that people still ask questions like this, that how high can I rev my 5.3, or, can I go to 6,000 or 6,500 or whatever? People are telling them, oh no, you can't rev that more than 6,000. I'm like, no, you on a stock motor with a stock cam, you can rev it way past that. And then, so I told them that we're revving that L33 to 7,700, and has lots of runs like that. But I also told them, but it's also a motor that if it broke the next time, I'd be, okay, I get that. It's always the ones that you don't, and I posted this, I said, it's always the ones that you don't care about that just seem to want to go the extra mile because they know that they want to earn your respect and earn your love. It's like the number 2 Formula One driver trying to justify his existence. There. Go, kid. It's over. One more, kid. No, I can't make it. What's up? There. I mean, yeah, it did make decent power, particularly with what to me seems like maybe a little bit too much blow by. Do you have LY6 Gen 4 6-liter cams? Yes, the cams that I have work in an LY6. I don't have any VVT cams if you want to keep that a VVT, because your LY6 was a VVT. My stock 5.3 will bounce off 6,400 on the rev limiter, but really stops making power. Yeah, the stock 5.3 doesn't. Hey, dog, be quiet. Yeah, it makes peak power at around 5,500, and it'll rev out there, but it's way on the downside of the curve. In fact, I can tell you how much. Let's see. Why did we only rev it that far? Yeah, 5,300 was the horsepower peak. And at 6,000, it's already down. At 6,000, it's already down 20 horsepower. So it'd be way down past that. I think we ran the. Let me go back here and look. 5.3. No, I don't want that. Cathedral port. 5.3. Ultimate LS cam test. Final LM7. How high do we rev that thing? Oh, yeah. So we went to 6,500. Okay. So to give you an idea, the horsepower peak was at 5,300 on an LM7 camshaft. Made 353. At 6,500, it'd be 304. So you're down at 6,500, which it will rev out there without any problem. We had springs in it though, but it was down 50 horsepower. So guys, they're taking a stock cam. I rev it out to 6,500. That's great. You're about 50 horsepower down. Well, the low buck truck camshaft were good for pulling. Denali, or does everything have to be changed? Just wanting good to. It's not a VVT cam. So if you want a VVT cam, you have to get something else. How much horsepower can I make safely with the LS53 truck version? Want stock heads, twin turbos, need to know. I need more information than that. If you want to see what we did with a stock bottom end with ring gap, but all the other stuff, you have to have big injectors and turbos and intercoolers, and we put heads and cam and intake manifold on that. We did 1,300 on that one, and on the 6-liter we did 1,500. But that's not a reliable thing. We were trying to find out what was the last number that we could get before the thing blew up. The 1,500 one didn't blow up. The 1,300 one didn't blow up either until we tried to shorten the run, I think, and then ended up hurting it. But you can make a lot. But you can make 600-700 horsepower and have it go run around for a long time. How much power do you believe is safe with a 4L60? Not very much. And your recommendation things you do. Yeah, for 700 horsepower, 4L60 is not going to be reliable. You're going to have to go through it a lot. Do you have it in a kit for an LY6? I don't. The only kits we have are right now are cam, springs, and lifters. But for yours, you would need to do, you're going to need a different timing gear set, a different front cover. And I think that the cam sensor is also different from the LY6 because I think it's taken a reading off the VVT stuff. So you need quite a few things for a VVT delete. But Brian Tooley Racing has VVT delete stuff. Starting to offer injectors to your cam kit, you can have an NA and boosted option. I want there to be a lower cost boosted option, like the 80 pounders that we put in everything. It's just that for different, there are so many different LS manifolds, and those manifolds require different length injectors. And then there are also different plug styles. You can get away with adapters for the plug styles, which is an easy fix. But the other way to do it is we've put, injector spacers and those kinds of things there. But when you go to injector that's longer, which is a lot of times the case, you have to space up the factory fuel rail. Boost tiers, yep, we can. Turbos will be up there before too long. Will better power be made from eliminating the VVT or keeping it? For drivability and low speed power, I would say the VVT makes more. For power past 4,000 RPM, a better cam will make more power. Even with a built 4L60 recommended 410 gears or up. Yeah, and I don't have any recommendations for gears or for transmission upgrades. I just don't have a lot of experience with that. The only transmission I've done is the one that's in my truck, and we just ended up buying it used because I was out in Ohio and found one that Summit had done. And the only thing I know about it is it has a Corvette servo in it. Did you ever find out whatever came of the Weingartner Cam showdown? Yeah, he posted all that. He posted all the results and stuff. I bored my 6.2 to my 6.0 to 6.2. I have a Truck Norris cam with 706 work better than Recport heads with that combo. No, yes and no. The Recport heads will make way more power. The 706 heads will make more low speed torque. So it depends on what you're trying to do. Factory speed 239, 254. Okay, that's a big cam. 4-barrel fuel injection. Factory speed. I don't know what size motor that is. Or did I miss it earlier? Corvette servo means it's super mobile. It is. It feels like the shift kit that I had in my sometimes feels like the shift kit that I had in my Turbo 350 back when I had my Camaro way back. You see the Boosted Boys K swap to Crown Vic for the 24-hour Lamollas. They're allowed to do that. Yeah, Dave, it would be you would make more low speed power with the 706 heads, but what I would recommend is you put a set of ported 706 heads in it. Factory speed 408. Yeah, I think 6500 is probably realistic. It might be it is the 4-barrel intake a single plane? If it's a good single plane, it might be a little more than that with that camshaft. Did you have a mullet at the same time you had your Camaro? No, this is for me. That was those are pre-mullet days. The mullet, I think, for me, the mullet came in with the IROC stuff. This intake manifold for an LQ4 with 243. The best manifold that will make the best power is a fast manifold for that. But a lot of guys don't want to do that. So if you want the best factory manifold, it's a Trailblazer SS. In fact, we were just looking into those, maybe trying to have one on the website. I run a similar cam in my 408. Just doubled on another 6-liter, complete and running with trans for 800. That's good. You can spend money on a 4060 to make some power, but it's costly. Yeah. Factory speed, did the manufacturer give a higher number? 5.3 aluminum block. Okay. Also got a Summit Racing 8716 cam. Do you have any knowledge on this stuff? Have you run this combo? I'm not familiar with all of the Summit cam numbers. So if you gave me the specs, particularly the duration at 50 on that camshaft, I can tell you, obviously every cam is a turbo cam, but I could tell you whether or not that would be good for, boost response and stuff. Holley single plane running a truck 4-bolt throttle body LS3 heads. And are the heads, if the heads are stock, then 6500 is probably about right. What I can do is look up the 416 stuff. Because I think that's where those stroker performance design tunnel ram LS3 carbureted intake tests. If you had a really good single plane, like the divided ones from Holley or a Mass or any of those. But let's look up a Victor Jr. So that one essentially made the same, made 650 from 6,600 out to 7,000. And that was a 416, but really good heads on it though. AFR LS3 heads, a 247, 258 cam. And it was a 416. Quite a bit more camshaft. Where do I get good VVT camshafts? I don't know. I think BTR might have VVT camshafts. Texas Speed has some, I think. The Cam Motion guys probably have some. Project 231, a 50. Yeah, that's going to be... I'm going to scroll back here. Yeah, that's not going to go more than 6,500.
No. We're doing your rope foot and league separate, but we're doing your rope foot all together.
Okay. Okay, Project Pompeii, you have 5.3. 231, is that... That's not the cam I would pick if I was running a turbo. That's quite a bit bigger than I would go. And I don't know what push rods you'll need, because I don't know what the base circle of their cam is. That's what's going to determine it. The lift and duration don't have anything to do with that. That's a much bigger cam than I would use on a turbo 5.3 because it's going to be soft down low. Scrolling. Richard, I'm with the Truck Norris cam. That's picked up by L96. I want to run it with my Truck Norris cam. Okay. Yes, it will work good in that motor. Not looking for peak horsepower, just if I'm short shifting it or where it should be. An easily swappable turbo kit that runs off of the factory manifolds and stock intake would be nice for a 351. Cam heads at pass smog and run a little boost, a little more ring gap, fail smog. I don't know what the effect the ring gap would have. Where can I get an excellent flat tappet cam and lifter set at any price? For what engine family are you wanting to get a flat tappet cam for? I have a 6-liter with sloppy stage 2, 15 pounds, a VS 7875. Thinking about going to a stage 1 for more lower speed power, like a Summit Ghost cam. Do you have a cam for that? Yeah, a low buck truck camshaft makes a lot more low speed power than a sloppy stage 2 does. My camshaft does. Lifter tick will occur if you have a loose or bent push rod. Yes, if you have a bent push rod, that can definitely happen because then you have lash there. Wrong. Push rod length can be noisy. Yeah, if it's too short, you have lash in the valve train, and that would definitely be noisy. Why are you laughing at 351? No, I'm laughing because you wanted it as an emissions legal turbo kit. Which would be better in a Crown Vic, build a 462 valve, a trip flow heads, or 464 valve Cobra swap. A 4 valve will make more power than a 2 valve will, but it depends on what you're trying to get done. But probably on a 4 valve, you will lose torque. I need to overlay some 2 valve and 4 valve, which I don't know if I've done that, to overlay 2 valve and 4 valve stuff. I'm running with 36,000 ring gap. Passes California smog, no problem. You use the angle grinder. It got a little bit excessive. That's quite a bit. That's all the gap that you'll ever need. You can run as much boost as you want. A collapsed lifter can also cause lash. Are you selling some truck length injectors? Not yet. We're looking for that. I'm looking for 80s or 90s in a truck length that are also affordable, but I've been doing this a long time and I haven't ever seen any of those because no OEM ever did anything like that. And that's where you'd have to find them. You need somebody that made, like 1 million of them so that they're affordable, and somebody made them for the OEMs, and nobody did that. There are aftermarket ones out there. Who are the guys? Injector Dynamics, or who are the other injectors that we were looking at today? They're all going to be, a lot more expensive. A 302 Ford small block. Where can I get an excellent flat tappet cam and lifter kit? My recommendation always for those would be go to Comp or Summit or somebody. I want a spool cam, all the lift, and exhaust. You don't want a lot of exhaust duration for spool. I thought one of my 455s had solid lifters when I first got it. Turned out they're all collapsed. That's not good. Average price to install a Chevy 5.3 liter. I have no idea what it costs to do an engine swap. Ty, I don't know what you mean by what are my thoughts. I don't know that. We have a couple minutes left, though. Should I put an affordable set of injectors for an NA truck application up? 88% are saying yes. Tech 80s are borderline good enough. They're not super precise for low RPM. Really? We haven't found that to be the case. I haven't tried to tune them for driving around, and obviously never tried emissions things with them. I'm feeling that a 393 build with the right cam and intake would be good enough. That's you can make lots of power with that, but a turbo would definitely be different. Even just a turbo 351. You just bought a set, okay? $735s for 5.3 to be turbocharged. Okay, that will limit power a little bit, but let's see. Deutschworks were the other ones. That was the other one that I was trying to think of. It'll be okay for 800 flywheel horsepower. It'd be okay for 800 flywheel horsepower on gas, but not on E85. Scott, you have Deutschworks? Deutschland. Stock Trailblazer SS's 32 pounds, I think. Supposed to be good for 500, according to Google. Just multiply 32 times 16. Yes. They will support more than 500 horsepower. More than 500 flywheel horsepower. 1200 cc's will work unless you're using E85. 1200s you could do 1,000 horsepower with the 85. DOS sound machine. Would a shift kit hurt or help a 4L80, 450 horsepower with 3200 stall? Really want a nasty for a second shift. Yeah, you should be able to do that. I have never worked on a 4L80, but it should, the shift kit, like the separator plate and stuff, all of that should work the same as a 400 does. But I don't know if they're already doing that with servos and programming. So somebody else can chime in on a 4L80 to see if that's the case, if it's an electronic shift kit. Probably want to spend some more time going through Bosch and Siemens catalogs. Yep. The problem is the combination of, really the plug is not an issue, but the sizing and the flow rate, the O-ring to O-ring length is to have them drop in perfectly. And then there's differences for the different year trucks too. Yeah, it's got to, if you're going to do your transmission, it's got to chirp second. If it doesn't chirp second, why even bother? Chirp. That was my favorite thing with my Camaro. Does it chirp second? I remember one time I got a really good chirp because it was a one-legged, it was a peg leg 308 gear. So it was, you know, it's not ideal for chirping second, but I remember the shift happened right when I went over a manhole. So I got a really good second gear chirp. L59 injectors. That's what we're looking at, are the flex fuel injectors. They do sell mechanical shift kit for 4L80s. An E4RD strength. I don't know. I would have to defer to Mark or one of the Ford transmission guys about that. I just don't know how strong those are. I mean, back, you know, on the Ford stuff, it was always, you got to put a C6 in it. But I don't know if the overdrive transmissions, I don't know how much strength that they have, and if they have the same kind of problems that the GM stuff does. 4L85E, just 5 better than the 4L80. Got one more minute. I've overheated my overdrive transmission. Uh-oh. That's not good. That's not bueno. DSM. My wife and I watched part of Last Dragon last night. This thing is awesome. Tried any new Coyote setups? No, the only Coyote I've ran is an old one. It's a Gen 1. I want to snap my neck in a second. Okay. Skinny ass string bean Rick James like a fool. That was just good stuff. Guys, you're checking on Ukraine. On that note, it is time to go. I'll see you guys all tonight. Tonight. Oh.